FC. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Anyone need to use the repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet? This is Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima. My name is Brenda. I'm in DeSoto, and I will be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the night sky, nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time using the pro sign, break, break, and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me. And stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.88 megahertz with a PL turn of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc.org right now for the complete list. Remember to tell others about this popular net. Amateur radio operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. This net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. General announcements. Two, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events. Then National Space Society events. Discussion topic of the evening, what you can see in the sky tonight, and future constellation or objects, our topic. Recent astronomical discoveries, space exploration and space history, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A, and 73 round if there is time. We have a very packed net tonight. We might have to eliminate something if we don't have time for everything. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. So we're going to start with low power and short time check-ins. Please come now with your call sign. name and where you're transmitting from this evening. Please come now.
Is November 5, Whiskey Oscar India, William and Allen. Short tap.
Hey, William, welcome to the net. Next, let's go on to general check-ins. Please come now.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha, Chaz, Whiskey.
Kilo 5, Kilo Tango X-Ray Kelly in Quinlan.
Alpha 5, Alpha Hotel, Robert Richardson.
Charlie 5, Oscar Zulu Tango, Carolyn in Louisville.
Kilo Golf 5, Papa, Mike in Richardson. Echo 5 is Charlie X-Ray, Tom, Louisville. Number 5, Bravo, Bravo, Bill in Irving. Number 5, Oscar Foxtrot, Clay in Mesquite. Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
Oscar Quebec Kilo Dave in Garland.
Okay, we'll pick these up. KFAJ Chaz, K5 KTX Kelly, AA5 AA to Robert, KC5 OZT Carolyn, KG5P Mike, KE5 ICX Tom, N5 BB Bill, N5 OF Clay, KF5 ZBL Bill, and KG5 OQK Dave. Anybody from Echolink, please come now.
Kilo India 5, Bravo November Papa.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey. Jay, near Weatherford. This is November 5, Yankee Echo Oscar. Stephen, San Antonio.
This is Kilo Foxtrot 5, Papa Delta Sierra, Billy in Sherman.
Okay, one of those doubled and I completely missed it. I don't have any part of the call sign, but you can let me know if your name's missing. We got KG5 BZWJ, N5 YEO Stephen, KF5 PDS Billy, And looks like we have N5WOI William. Oh, Tom, he was the first one to check in. We had him already, so never mind that. And who was the station that I skipped over?
This is Kilo India 5, Bravo November Papa, Luis in Fort Worth.
It's Kilo India 5, Bravo November Papa, Luis. Welcome to the net. Okay, any more check-ins of any kind, please come now.
So 5 Alpha November Papa, Allen in Dallas.
This is Kilo Golf 5 Echo India Uniform, David, St. Paul, Texas.
Okay, I think it's Kilo 5 Alpha November Papa, Allen. Did I get that correct? I couldn't quite get your last letter.
This is correct.
Thank you. Then KG5 EIU David. Okay, anybody else? All right, well, let's move on. General announcements. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or general interest to licensed hams. Please come now if you do.
November 5 Bravo Bravo.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Go ahead.
Yes, the local chapter of the National Space Society will meet tomorrow, Sunday, February the 10th, at the Spring Creek Barbecue on Highway 183 at Beltline, southeast corner in Irving, across the street from Irving Mall. Meeting will start about 3:30, and the speaker will be Dr. Don Thomas, who is an NASA astronaut. And I believe there'll be more about him probably in the net tonight. Visitors are welcome. If you're interested in joining the National Space Society local chapter, I'm now the membership director, so you can talk to me and the treasurer at the meeting. Thank you, N5BB.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, the Radio Amateur Satellite Group has 2 nets available to Dallas residents. On Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central, you'll need Echolink installed and be registered. You can find the net under Groups and AMSAT. Also, a live audio link is available for their website, which is amsatnet.com. It originates in Houston. Dallas AMSATnet, Dallas Fort Worth. This is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, 147.14 megahertz, PL tone of 110.9 megahertz, positive offset. This is not the only net tonight. We have another one after this at about 10:30. Called the Afterglow Net. This is where we watch a movie and then discuss it. And tonight's movie is Dimension 5. I would like to ask Tom, KE5ICX, to please give us a synopsis of this movie.
Brenda. This is KE5ICX Dimension 5. Captain Pike looked across his quarters. Dr. Boyce was passed out, his swizzle stick sticking out of his right nostril. He had just one too many martinis. Pike remembered his trip to Talos 4. Vina was a real looker, but was dating 3 different bald guys with big brains. He sighed and said, that spaceship has sailed. Pike's mind started to wander. I'll get it right. What would it be like to be a multi-dimensional secret agent? Join us for the next Afterglow movie, Dimension 5, tonight at 10:30 p.m. Same bat time, mate. Same bat channel. Back to you, net control, I think.
Thank you, Tom. You do all understand that was a tongue-in-cheek parody. That's not exactly the way the movie really goes. But you can, if you've seen it, you know that. Next, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, where and when you can look through a telescope. Does anybody have information on that?
Yeah, 5JHA.
Yeah, 5JHA. Go ahead, Taz.
Everyone, good evening. Yes, the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas meets at the University of Dallas in Richardson. That would be on Campbell Road on the 4th Friday of each month, except for November and December. In November, they meet the Friday before Thanksgiving. In December, we usually have a holiday event, and it's in random time during that month. So, starts at 7:30. Park in the appropriate parking lots, but the details are located on the website texasastro.org. Also, the Texas Astronomical Society holds monthly star parties. On the first Saturday of each month, Stargazer Star Party happens in Garland at Spring Park. On the second Saturday of each month, the Frisco Starfest happens at Frisco Commons Park. On the third Saturday of each month, Cedar Hill Starbolt happens at J.W. Williams Park. And on the fourth Saturday of each month, Stars on the Rock in Rockwall at the Shores Park happens. All of these happen right as it's getting dusk and for a couple of hours thereafter. Obviously, tonight's program did not occur because of the mist and rain and clouds. KF5, JHA, back to net control.
Thank you, Chaz. Okay, the next section is about the National Space Society events, but Bill already gave us a rundown on that. But I'm going to do a short piece on that. One of Dr. Thomas's missions. He did 4 shuttle missions, but one of these was STS-70, also known as the Woodpecker mission, because of all the problems they had with woodpeckers. So, let me see the article. Hold on. There are 2 things that don't mix, birds and rockets. In 1995, NASA found out the hard way when a fleet of woodpeckers royally sabotaged a shuttle launch. The Space Shuttle Discovery was popped up on its launch pad in Cape Canaveral, all ready for its big trip in June 1995. Then nature happened. NASA was forced to indefinitely postpone this launch because of some libidinous birds. These are yellow-shafted flicker woodpeckers. The STS-71 shuttle Mir docking mission was originally scheduled for June 22nd, but NASA had to release a reassess their plan after a swarm of red woodpeckers chiseled about 200 holes in Discovery's fuel tank. Now, I've read other reports that it was more like 70 holes, so I'm not sure which it is, but anyway, it's a lot. They punched these holes in the insulation. The damage was too severe for technicians to fix from a basket on a crane at the launch site. They wheeled her back to the vehicle assembly building. These birds weren't messing around. The holes they jabbed were as big as about 4 inches across. Spokesman says the woodpeckers were more aggressive than ever that year. They're not sure why. But bird specialists from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service were called to the scene. Said the birds usually hammer into tree limbs or tin roofs to attract female attention. That's right, they were acting stupid to get the girls' attention. That's what it was. Taking into the space shuttle fuel tank was quite the opportunity for a next-level mating dance. So the question is, how do you prevent woodpeckers from using rockets as flirting tools? The bird specialist suggested putting a decoy owl near the launch pads. Just setting it up wasn't enough. NASA employees had to move the decoy to different spots so the woodpeckers wouldn't figure it out as fake. To top it off, they played tapes of hooting great horned owls, predators of woodpeckers. Leading up to the launch, NASA even set up a team known as Bird Investigation Review and Deterrent, known as BIRD, to patrol the area. They would blast air horns when they saw a woodpecker nearing the shuttle on the pad. What do you know? It worked. Discovery was back on its way on July 13th. No pesky little flickers in sight. I saw an interview from a woman. She was like one of the secretaries, and they asked the secretaries to come on the weekend and climb up on this scaffolding and blow the horns. So it's like in other duties as required. Somebody snuck a woody woodpecker, a stuffed one, onto the onto the shuttle. I can't find any public pictures, but I've seen some that were from Mary Ellen Weber's personal collection, where they have this stuffed woodpecker taking pictures and operating equipment and looking out the window. It's just extremely cute. And I also heard a talk by a mission controller for that mission, who said that he put a stuffed woodpecker on top of his console, and his boss came and said, if you want a job, get that out of here. So it's really funny now, but it was not at the time, for sure. The woody woodpecker is not a flipper woodpecker. He's a pileated woodpecker. The kind that attacked the shuttle don't have that red crest on their head like Woody does. The males have a little red spot on the side of their head, but they don't look anything like Woody at all. So Woody Woodpecker also had his moment of fame in the movies about space. The movie Destination Moon has a delightful little segment where Woody Woodpecker explains how rockets work, and it's scientifically accurate. If you've never seen that movie, it's worth the price just to see Woody talk about rockets. The way Mel Blanc did the first voice of Woody, but then he got into a scheduling problem. He was under contract for the company that became, I'm blanking on it, the people that did Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck. So he had a contract conflict. And Walter Lance's wife did the voice for most of the years that Woody was around. So Woody was incorporated into the shuttle patch. The original patch just shows the shuttle standing up, going up, and the special patch has Woody in there, so they're highly collectible. If you have one, don't give it away. Alrighty, moving on. Let's see, Mike, KG5P. I hope that you have something to talk to us about. I'm not quite sure what your topic is, so please, if you're there, the floor is yours. This is WB50ZL.
Alrighty, WB50ZL on the group. This is KG5P. Thank you, Brenda. Well, I'd like to continue my discussion on quantum physics. I wanted to finish up what we talked about last week. I ran out of time. Don't want to monopolize this too much. Okay, last week we talked about Maxwell's equations and his electromagnetic theory. Okay, Maxwell showed that electromagnetic radiation could be propagated through space as waves without the need for this luminiferous ether, because of the way the waves are produced using magnetic and electric fields. What this happens is that as Maxwell described, is a changing electric field gives rise to a changing magnetic field, which in turn gives rise to a changing electric field, and so on. So energy is continually being swapped between these two fields, resulting in this electromagnetic field that shows wave characteristics. That's why there was no ether necessary for propagation. Okay, now I was going to talk a little bit about Maxwell's fourth equation, because that's the most important. In his fourth equation, that's the one where he shows how that a magnetic field can be produced, a changing magnetic field can be produced by changing electric field. And he has a couple of constants in there that these are important, I think, because they show up all over physics, and they also are useful for something I'll get to in a minute here. Okay, the first he has this permittivity constant, and the other is what he calls the permeability constants. And these constants can be used among other things to calculate the speed of light. Now Maxwell, typically we measure the speed of light through elaborate processes, but Maxwell could actually calculate the speed of light using these two constants. I mean, is that cool or what? I mean, I don't know what the definition is for genius, but that's got to be it somewhere, something like that. Okay, these constants can be found throughout physics and electrical engineering, and they're printed in the back of every physics text ever written, and they even program them into scientific calculators. Okay, and so what happens here is we have this, one of the constants is called mu naught, which is the permeability constant. It's used to measure the ability of a material to support the formation of a magnetic field. Okay, the ability of a material to support the formation of a magnetic field. The other one, permittivity, is a measure of capacitance that is found forming an electric field in a particular medium. And E sub naught, or epsilon sub naught, means it's in a vacuum. Now, if you decided, for example, you wanted to go into the business of manufacturing capacitors, you'd have to know what this constant is, because it would tell you, help you determine the physical dimensions for a particular size capacitor. Okay, but what I think is really cool about this is if you take the permeability constant, and you multiply it times the permittivity constant, you take that product take the square root of it and take the inverse of that, which means you divide it into 1, you get 100 times 10 to the 6 meters per second, and that is the speed of light. This just boggles my mind how he could have figured that out. Well, I'd like to go on now and complete the discussion on Young's double-slit experiment, showing the wave nature of light and how it fits into the particle wave theory currently believed to be correct. And then I'd like to talk about black body radiation and the problem it suggests called the ultraviolet paradox. Okay, so we talked about last time we showed how Young's double-slit experiment showed that light emitted from a point source appears to behave like a wave, with constructive and destructive interference. Now, suppose you were to drop a pebble into a pond, it's going to send out a series of concentric circles, and those are going to have like peaks and valleys, okay? And if this wave goes through a double slit, you're going to get 2 of these. We'll break it into two sets of concentric waves, and they will start to combine and reinforce each other, or they'll interfere with each other. And if they reinforce each other, you're going to have the 2 peaks are going to cause a bigger peak, and the 2 low peaks are going to form a deeper low peak. But if a peak of a wave corresponds with the trough of another wave, they're going to cancel each other out. That's called destructive interference. The first one is called constructive interference. That's like if you eat a Big Mac and wash it down with a Diet Coke, they'll cancel each other out, right? And experimentally, you get these peaks and valleys and constructive and destructive interference, and it would appear that light, like a wave, it appears to have wave characteristics, and for a long time that sort of settled it. But if you take this wave of, say, a light or any particle, where it doesn't matter, it can be a light photon, it can be say an electron, it can be a proton, it can be a neutron. Any of these particles will produce this type of constructive and destructive interference patterns. But if you project these onto a target, say it's light, you'll get a series of light, bright and dark lines. They're called fringe patterns. And this is what's really cool about quantum mechanics, is that you no longer see a wave. You see these fringe patterns that are made up of a bunch of little dots. And these dots appear to be particles. So what is electromagnetic radiation, or what is any particle that has that wave characteristic? Is it a wave? Is it a particle? It appears to be both. It appears to be both, and it doesn't appear to be a particle until we attempt to observe it or to measure it. Otherwise, it's a wave. And that's what is so bizarre about quantum mechanics, is it's a wave until we observe it, and then it becomes a particle. The act of observing it causes it to change to nature. In fact, the physicists have a name for this. They call it the eigenstate. When it's observed, it collapses. The wave collapses into this eigenstate, and this is found all throughout quantum mechanics. So, if light, in fact, were made of particles, interference could not be possible. We can speak of interference of waves, but there's no meaning in saying that 2 particles could interfere with each other. And from the standpoint of classical physics, that's physics of our everyday experience, it would make even less sense to speak of a single particle traversing both slits at the same time and interfering with itself like a wave does once it hits a screen. Or does it have a meaning? So we see that light, or more generally, electromagnetic interactions seem to behave like waves and not as tiny particles, that is, point-like particles. And this is a state of knowledge until the end of the 19th century. Newton's light particle theory was downgraded to a historical curiosity. But from the beginning of the 20th century, and as time went by, new experiments and the clever insights of many physicists indicated that this could not be the whole story. This particle nature theory of light returned and continued for about 30 years afterwards. Okay, now I'm going to get into black body radiation. You've seen pictures of the X-15 and the SR-71 and those cool-looking aircraft in the painted black. Well, they're painted black for a reason, and the reason is because they have certain properties that are useful. If these properties could be done with pink paint, then they would have painted them pink. But it turns out that black works the best for what they want to use it for. In fact, they've got about, on the SR-71, they have about 60 gallons of black paint, and it cools the aircraft titanium body down by about 85 degrees, which is a lot, because any heat is going to heat up fuel and cause all kinds of problems. So, at the end of the 19th century, physicists had to tackle with a very dirty and uncomfortable problem. The question was why, and according to what principles, do hot bodies radiate heat? The answer that classical physics gave was unacceptable, because every object that's not frozen to absolute zero, even if it's 1 degree above absolute zero, must radiate an infinite amount of heat in the form of electromagnetic waves. Okay, certain objects are called black bodies because they emit radiation at all wavelengths. For example, the sun. Most of the radiation is in the visible region, but we also receive radiation in infrared, ultraviolet, and beyond. So, as the wavelength of the radiation moves into the visible spectrum at about 4,000 Kelvin, objects become visible to us. That's why they appear to glow, like, the sun and light bulb filaments, as opposed to, say, human bodies, which appear dark at around 310 Kelvin. So a hot piece of metal also does this, and this is originally how they studied black bodies at the time, around the turn of the 20th century and before. The distribution of the radiation does not depend on the material, but only on the temperature. So there's a relationship of the wavelength and the intensity that shifts left as the temperature increases and the wavelength approaches zero. The intensity approaches infinity in an exponential fashion. In fact, as the wavelength decreases, or the frequency increases and the wavelength decreases, as it approaches zero, the amount of what they call radiance approaches infinity. And in fact, that theory is called the Rayleigh-James limit, and it increases exponentially at about times, or a multiple of 4, or not a multiple of 4, but like an exponent of 4, as the frequency goes up and the wavelength goes down. And classical physics predicts that any object would release an infinite amount of energy at somewhere around in the ultraviolet spectrum. And the problem with black body radiation at the time was that classical physics could not account for this. Excuse me. The math models at the time worked well on longer wavelengths in the infrared and near infrared, but could not predict that the intensity would dip down to the left in the UV portion instead of continuing to go up, as experimental data indicated. Instead, the math predicted that the intensity would approach infinity as the wavelength decreased and would become infinitely large as the wavelength approached zero. So this caused two problems. First of all, it violated the first law of thermodynamics, because you can't create energy. And second, it would result in an unlimited amount of energy released for all objects that were not at absolute zero. And this would result in the destruction of the universe, the so-called ultraviolet catastrophe. So there's obviously something wrong here, simply because we were talking about it. It was called the ultraviolet catastrophe because the infinity asymptote is located in the ultraviolet part of the spectrum. Therefore, we realized that classical electromagnetism of Maxwell must be complete. Now, this paradox was solved around 1905 by Max Planck, and this also marked the advent of modern quantum physics. Planck resolved the conundrum and is thus considered to be the father of quantum mechanics, aka quantum physics, and will be the topic of the next discussion. And also around the same time, Einstein won the Nobel Prize in physics for his work on the photoelectric effect, and this also fit in very nicely to what Planck said, and so that's sort of where we got started. And we'll go from here. So next week we'll talk in more detail about black body radiation and explain how the ultraviolet catastrophe problem was resolved. Okay, I'll kick it back to Ned because I know that Brenda has a lot more going on. So thank you very much, and I'll have some more for you next time. Back to Ned, KG5P.
Thank you, Mike. Do we have any more check-ins?
November 5 Alpha Bravo Alpha, Andre in Arkansas via Echolink.
Okay, come back with your whole call sign again, please. Sample is N5ABA. Welcome to the net, Andre. Okay, our next segment is called What's Up? And this is by Chaz, KF5JHA. Go ahead, Chaz.
KG5P recheck.
Go ahead, KG5P.
Okay, I was also going to ask Chaz if he had anything to add, because it's much more Chaz's field than it is mine. So, if Chaz, if you have any comments or anything, or maybe something I might have been incorrect on, could you let me know that too, please? Thanks. Back to net KG5P.
Okay, go ahead, Chaz.
Mike, good evening. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. My degree is in astrophysics, and I work at Brookhaven Community College. Mike, it's interesting about the dual nature of light. I think, this is my personal opinion, that light is something other than a wave or a particle. We just look at these, and these are characteristics. That's my personal take on that. So, yeah, thank you. That is kind of a deep subjects that you're going into, but it's something very important because we find out all of our information from other things, like other stars, from just a beam of light, how big they are, what the temperature is, how old they are, the list goes on, what they're made up of, all that from a beam of light. So all that quantum mechanics stuff is very important. So, I gave all of you a homework assignment last Sunday during halftime of the Super Bowl. Did all y'all go out and do your homework at halftime and look for Mars and the constellation of Aries or Ram and the Big Dipper, which is the real Super Bowl? Please raise your hands if you tried. Okay, good. I may call on some of you later. Yes, I see you in the back over there. It has been really cloudy over the last week. I think I saw a bright thing in the daytime sky a couple of times, but it might have just been my imagination. If you have X-ray vision to look through the clouds tonight, in the evening sky, you'd be able to see the waxing crescent moon just below and a little bit left of the planet Mars in the western sky. By tomorrow night, the moon will be just to the left of Mars. On February the 12th, the moon will be at its first quarter phase. The reason why we call it the first quarter moon is because the moon has traveled 1/4 of the way around the Earth in its orbit. You know, with lunar phases, there are no dollars involved, just quarters. I heard those laughs out there. As the moon moves through our sky while orbiting the Earth, it will cover up or block, or we call it occult, things that are further away. The moon occults stars every night, and occasionally the moon will occult a planet. On March the 1st of this year, the moon will occult the planet Saturn during the day. I'll talk more about that as we get closer to that event. On this Wednesday, February the 13th, as it is getting twilight, the moon will already be in the middle of the face of Taurus the Bull, which is an open star cluster called the Hyades. The moon will already be occulting some stars in the Hyades at twilight. And until the moon sets around midnight, you'll be able to watch the moon occult, or in other words, cover up and uncover stars all evening. Now, the best way to observe this event is with a telescope or a good pair of binoculars. You don't need to go out and buy a $5,000 telescope before Wednesday night just to watch the occultation. But having a pair of binoculars is probably the minimum that you'll want to have. You don't need to spend a lot of money on a pair of binoculars if you don't already have a pair. You can get an okay pair of binoculars at the local department store for about $50 or a little bit less. At Sam's Club last week and saw a pair of Bushnell 10 by 50 binoculars on sale for $30. But sometimes the lower cost of some binoculars will give you lower quality and poor image quality that they produce. I own a wide variety of binocular sizes and qualities, from a very small pair that I can fit in a pocket, my shirt pocket, all the way up to a pair of binoculars that I have to put on a tripod in order to be able to steady them. Here is some basic information about binoculars. You'll usually see two numbers on the binoculars that look like a 10 and an X and a 50. We say 10 by 50s. The first number is the magnification of the binoculars. In other words, how many times larger the object appears compared to just your two eyes. The higher the number, the higher the magnification, and the more you're zoomed into the image. But the higher magnification will mean that holding the binoculars steady will be difficult, and you may need to put them on a tripod, like my 20 by 80 binoculars. The second number is the size of the objective lenses in millimeters. The objective lenses are the lenses that you point at the object. Get it? Objective, object? Yeah, makes sense. The eyepiece lenses are the lenses that you put up to your eyes. Eyepiece, eyes. That does make sense. Usually the larger the objective lenses, that's the part facing toward the object, the fainter the objects you can see. But the lenses, as they get larger, the binoculars will get heavier and harder to hold. From a friend recently, a pair of 8 by 40 binoculars that has become my favorite for general use. They're not too heavy, so I can hold them for a long time. They're not too high-powered, so the image does not wiggle around, and they are high quality. It sounds like a story that I know, involving 3 bears and Goldilocks and the porridge that is just right. But there are really only 2 bears in the sky. And I told you that Brookhaven's mascot is a bear. Go Bears! Okay, let me get back on task. I have a couple of pairs of 20 by 80 binoculars that need to be attached to a tripod. These are great in dark sky locations for looking at fainter objects in the sky, such as galaxies, close by emission nebula, the scanning of the Milky Way, or just looking at star clusters like the Hyades. And globulars. Globulars are old clusters of stars having been formed about the same time as our galaxy. Most globular clusters contain stars that are about the same size as our sun. Globular clusters usually have between 10,000 up to over 1 million stars. Now, open star clusters are relatively new, have formed recently, and have all sorts of star sizes, and have between a dozen up to maybe 1,000 or maybe a little bit more star members. Hyades is an open cluster and is so close to us that the group looks spread out, and it forms the V-shaped face of Taurus the Bull. Over several hours from twilight until moonset on Wednesday, February 13th, you'll be able to see a lot of stars being occulted. If you want some detailed information about the times of the occultations, you can go to the Texas Astronomical website, texasastro.org, and download the January or February issue of their newsletter, The Spectrum, and look for the article called What's Up. Sounds familiar to me. Also on February the 17th, the moon will go through another star cluster. Well, I'll talk more about that on next week's What's Up. Some late-breaking news. We will be visited. I'm not talking about UFOs and aliens. That's another topic for another time. Maybe in a science fiction afterglow movie, maybe. But over the next few days, comet Iamoto, just discovered in December, will split the orbits of Earth and Mars, making a relatively close approach to our planet, which is visible through small telescopes with a brightness of around 5th magnitude. This is not really visible to the unaided eyes. So those binoculars we talked about will come in handy observing this. Their event. The comet comes in from the realm of extreme trans-Neptunian objects. Isn't that fun to say 3 times in a row? Distant region of the solar system, inhabited by strange objects such as Sedna and the Goblin. Following a highly elliptical orbit that's 1,371 years long, it passages through the inner solar system. The last time was in the year 648, and it wasn't observed. And the next perihelion, that's when it's close to the sun, won't happen until the year 3,390. Therefore, if you want to see this comet, now is the time to look. Skynet, we are familiar with 2 places to get more information about all sorts of things, including comets. One is spaceweather.com and heavens-above.com. Those are websites you can easily find out a lot of information. But the one that I use a lot for comet information is the word N-I-N dash the T-H-E dash sky S-K-Y.org. And you can go there and get all sorts of information, especially about comets and which ones are getting brighter, which ones are getting dimmer, and where they're located in the sky. I only have another 2 hours worth, so, Afterglow movie can start about midnight. No, I only have just another paragraph to go. Okay, maybe a couple sentences. Don't forget to look at the planet Mercury low in the western sky during the evening twilight. Mars is the pale orange object high in the western evening sky. Remember, the moon is close to Mars in the sky over the next 2 nights. And in the early morning sky, watch for Venus, Jupiter, and Saturn. They're in the southeastern sky, just before twilight. And I think I've taken up my time and somebody else's time, too. So this is Chaz, KF5, JHA. That's all for this week's What's Up. Back to Brenda, Net Control. Thanks.
Thank you, Chaz. Do we have any more check-ins?
Is C4MFI Whiskey Bravo number 4 Mike Foxtrot India Ted Dallas Low Power.
Okay, we have WB4MFI Ted. Welcome to the net. Okay, next up, Constellation of the Week. I'll now call on Carolyn, KC5OZT. Go ahead, Carolyn.
Thank you, Brenda. This is KC5OZT, and tonight we're going to look at a constellation called the Lynx. And it represents its namesake, the Lynx. It's not even associated with any myths. It was introduced by Hevelius in the 17th century to fill in a large gap between the constellations Auriga and Ursa Major. And he named it the Lynx because it was pretty faint, and it took the eyesight of the lynx to see it. Other than the alpha lenses, there's no stars brighter than 4th magnitude. It's a 28th constellation in size. And speaking of alpha lynx, it's magnitude 3.13, and it's about 203 light years away. Class K. It's an orange giant. It's moved past the main sequence and exhausted the hydrogen at its core. And so it's only its brightest star in length, so it's only the star that has a Bayer designation, a Greek letter. Most constellations are full of those, but anyway, moving on to the next star. It's 31 Lynxes, also called Alshia cat, I think. I'm not sure. But it's the only star in Lynx that actually has a proper name. And it's very similar to Alpha. So, and then we have 38 Lynxes. And it is actually the second brightest star. Magnitude 3.8 and Class A. And it is a packed binary star. Brighter component is a Class A hydrogen fusing dwarf, and it has a 6th magnitude star, a Class A dwarf, as a companion. Maybe light on stars, but it does have some deep sky objects. The first one we'll look at is NGC 2419. It's a globular star cluster, but it goes by the name the Intergalactic Tramp, or Intergalactic Wanderer. It's about magnitude 9, so it's highly concentrated at the center. And it's got its nickname because it was originally believed not to be in orbit around the Milky Way. It has been proven false since. It takes about 3 billion years to complete an orbit, but it does orbit it. "300,000 light years from the galactic center and one of the most remote clusters, almost twice as far as the large Magellanic Cloud." That's the galaxy in the Constellation Dorado. This cluster was discovered by Herschel and believed to be a star, but American astronomer Carl Lamplin discovered that it was really a globular cluster of stars. Our second object, NGC 2683, is known as the UFO galaxy. It's an unbarred spiral galaxy at magnitude 10. It appears nearly edge-on when observed from Earth, so that was given the nickname the UFO galaxy. Next object, NGC 2537, is known as the Bear's Paw galaxy. It's a blue compact dwarf galaxy, which means it's a small galaxy. It contains large clusters of hot young stars, which gives it its blue color. And you need a large scope. It's about magnitude 12, but it is, you can see it in photos. And we have I'm not sure I have a picture of it, but we have an NGC 2770. It's a spiral galaxy, magnitude 12 if you have the equipment to observe it. It's worth watching. It's been nicknamed the Supernova Factory because 3 supernova events have been observed in it in recent years. In 1999, 2007, 2008. And the one in 2008 is notable for being the first supernova to first be detected by the X-rays emitted early in its formation and not by the light that's emitted later. They think it's possible that the interactions with a suspected companion galaxy may have created the massive stars causing this activity. And then we have NGC 2541, an unbarred spiral. Again, magnitude about 12. But it belongs to a whole group of galaxies located in Lynx and Ursa Major, which also includes the Bear's Paw. So Lynx may be faint and not too many stars and some faint objects, but you have to admit it has some very interesting objects. So take a tour through this and see what you can discover, and watch that galaxy for supernova. You never know. So unless there's any questions, Brenda, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Carolyn. Do we have any more check-in? Okay, next up, I am going to do a couple of articles about recent astronomical discoveries. The first is entitled, First Accurate 3D Map of the Milky Way Reveals a Warped Galaxy. And this is an extraordinary, well, it's not a photo, obviously, visual, that shows the warp on this galaxy. It's really striking. So if you can go to our website and see all the pictures, and you can also see all the constellations that Carolyn talked about as well. Our Milky Way galaxy's disk of stars is anything but stable and flat. Instead, it becomes increasingly warped and twisted far away from the Milky Way center, according to astronomers from Macquarie University and the Chinese Academy of Sciences, who built the first accurate 3D map of Earth's home galaxy and unveiled it today in a paper published in Nature Astronomy. The center, according to astronomers from Macquarie University and the Chinese Academy of Sciences, who have built the first accurate 3D map of Earth's home galaxy and unveiled it today. That's redundant. They repeat themselves a lot. From a great distance, our galaxy would look like a thin disk of stars that orbit once every few 100 million years around its central region, where hundreds of billions of stars provide the gravitational glue to hold it all together. But the pull of gravity becomes weaker far away from the Milky Way's inner regions. In the galaxy's far outer disk, the hydrogen atoms making up most of the Milky Way's gas disk are no longer confined to a thin plane, but they give the disk an S-like warped appearance. It is notoriously difficult to determine distances from the Sun to parts of the Milky Way's outer gas disk without having a clear idea of what the disk actually looks like, says Xiaodian Chen, a researcher at the Chinese Academy of Sciences in Beijing and lead author of the article in Nature Astronomy. However, we recently published a new catalog of well-behaved variable stars known as classical Cepheids, for which distances as accurate as 3 to 5% can be determined. That database allowed the team to develop the first accurate three-dimensional picture of our Milky Way out to its far outer regions. Classical Cepheids are young stars that are some 4 to 20 times as massive as our Sun and up to 100,000 times as bright. Such high stellar masses imply that they live fast and die young, burning through their nuclear fuel very quickly, sometimes in only a few million years. They show day to month-long pulsations, which are observed as changes in their brightness. Combined with a Cepheid's observed brightness, its pulsation period can be used to obtain a highly reliable distance. Somewhat to our surprise, we find that in 3D, our collection of 1,339 Cepheid stars and the Milky Way's gas disk follow each other closely. This offers new insights into the formation of our home galaxy, says Macquarie University's Professor Richard de Gries, astronomer and senior co-author of the paper. Perhaps more important, in the Milky Way's outer regions, we found that the S-like stellar disk is warped in a progressively twisted spiral pattern. This reminded the team of earlier observations of a dozen other galaxies which also showed such progressively twisted spiral patterns. Combining their new results with those other observations, the researchers concluded that the Milky Way's warped spiral pattern is most likely caused by torques, or rotational forcing, by the massive inner disk. This new morphology provides a crucial updated map for studies of our galaxy's stellar motions and the origins of the Milky Way's disk, according to Lai Kai Ding, senior researcher at the Chinese Academy of Sciences and co-author of the paper. Next article, Dynamic Atmospheres of Uranus and Neptune. And again, we have great visuals on these. They're very pretty. During its routine yearly monitoring of the weather of our solar system's outer planets, NASA's Hubble Space Telescope has uncovered a new mysterious dark storm on Neptune and provided a fresh look at a long-lived storm circling around the North Polar region on Uranus. Like Earth, Uranus and Neptune have seasons, which likely drive some of the features in their atmospheres, but their seasons are much longer than on Earth, spanning decades rather than months. The new Hubble view of Neptune shows the dark storm seen at the top center. Appearing during the planet's southern summer, the feature is the fourth and latest mysterious dark vortex captured by Hubble since 1993. Two other dark storms were discovered by the Voyager 2 spacecraft in 1989 as it flew by the remote planet. Since then, only Hubble has had the sensitivity in blue light to track these elusive features, which have appeared and faded quickly. A study led by University of California, Berkeley undergraduate student Andrew Su estimated that the dark spots appear every 4 to 6 years at different latitudes and disappear after about 2 years. Hubble uncovered the latest storm in September 2018 in Neptune's northern hemisphere. The feature is roughly 6,800 miles across. To the right of the dark feature are bright white companion clouds. Hubble has observed similar clouds accompanying previous vortices. The bright clouds form when the flow of ambient air is perturbed and diverted upward over the dark vortex, causing gases to freeze into methane ice crystals. These clouds are similar to clouds that appear as pancake-shaped features when air is pushed over mountains on Earth, though Neptune has no solid surface. The long, thin cloud to the left of the dark spot is a transient feature that is not part of the storm system. It's unclear how these storms form, but like Jupiter's Great Red Spot, the dark vortices swirl in an anticyclonic direction and seem to dredge up material from deeper levels in the ice giant's atmosphere. Observations show that as early as 2016, increased cloud activity in the region preceded the vortex's appearance. The images indicate that the vortices probably developed deeper in Neptune's atmosphere, becoming visible only when the top of the storm reaches higher altitudes. The snapshot of Venus, like the image of the snapshot of Uranus, like the image of Neptune, reveals a dominant feature, a vast, bright, stormy cloud cap across the North Pole. Scientists believe this new feature is the result of Uranus's unique rotation. Unlike every other planet in the solar system, Uranus is tipped over almost onto its side. Because of this extreme tilt during the planet's summer, the sun shines almost directly onto the North Pole and never sets. Uranus is now approaching the middle of its summer season, and the polar cap region is becoming more prominent. This polar hood may have formed by seasonal changes in atmospheric flow. The edge of the polar storm is a large, compact methane ice cloud, which is sometimes bright enough to be photographed by amateur astronomers. A narrow cloud band encircles the planet north of the equator. It is a mystery how bands like these are confined to such narrow widths, because Uranus and Neptune have very broad, westward-blowing wind jets. Both planets are classified as ice giant planets. They have no solid surface, but rather mantles of hydrogen and helium surrounding a water-rich interior. itself perhaps wrapped around a rocky core. Atmospheric methane absorbs red light but allows blue-green light to be scattered back into space, giving each planet a cyan hue. The new Neptune and Uranus images are from the Outer Planet Atmosphere's Legacy, OPAL, program, a long-term Hubble project led by Amy Simon of NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland, that annually captures global maps of our solar system's outer planets when they are closest to Earth in their orbits. Hubble's key goals are to study long-term seasonal changes, as well as capture comparatively transitory events, such as the appearance of Neptune's dark spots. These dark storms may be so fleeting that in the past some of them may have appeared and faded during multi-year gaps in Hubble's observations of Neptune. The OPAL ensures that astronomers won't miss another one. These images are part of a scrapbook of Hubble snapshots of Neptune and Uranus that track the weather patterns over time on these distant cold planets. Just as meteorologists cannot predict the weather on Earth by studying a few snapshots, astronomers cannot track atmospheric trends on solar system planets without regularly repeating observations. Astronomers hope that Hubble's long-term monitoring of the outer planets will help them unravel the mysteries that still persist about these faraway worlds. Analyzing the weather on these worlds will also help scientists better understand the diverse polarities of the atmosphere of solar system planets, including Earth. Alrighty, these are both from ScienceDaily.com, should you like to go. I read both of them in total. Alright, coming up now we have Kelly, K5KTX, with a presentation. Go ahead, Kelly. This is WB50ZL.
Well, good evening, everyone. This is K5KTX, and you may remember back on November the 26th, the Mars InSight mission landed safely and has been working really well so far. Well, what you may not remember is that there were two additional spacecraft that went along for the ride with the InSight mission, and that was two spacecraft collectively known as MARCO, and they're two small CubeSats. So they launched last year, same day, in the same rocket with the InSight mission, and their success was measured by survival. If they were able to operate in deep space at all, they would be pushing the limits of experimental technology. Now, well, past Mars, the daring twins seem to have reached their limit. It's been over a month since engineers have heard from MARCO, which follows NASA's InSight to the Red Planet. At this time, the mission team considers it unlikely they'll be heard from again. MARCO, short for Mars Cube 1, was the first interplanetary mission to use a class of mini spacecraft called CubeSats. The MARCOs, nicknamed Eve and Wally after characters from a Pixar film, served as communications relays during InSight's landing, beaming back data at each stage of its descent to the Martian surface in near real time, allowing along with InSight's first image. Wally sent back stunning images of Mars as well, while Eve performed some simple radio science. All of this was achieved with experimental technology that cost a fraction of what most space missions do, $18.5 million provided by NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, which built the CubeSats. Wally was last heard from on December the 29th, Eve on January the 4th. Based on trajectory calculations, Wally is currently more than 1 million miles past Mars. Eve is farther, almost 2 million miles past Mars. The mission team has several theories for why they haven't been able to contact the pair. Wally has a leaky thruster. Attitude control issues could be causing them to wobble and lose the ability to send and receive commands. The brightness sensors that allow the CubeSats to stay pointed at the sun and recharge the batteries could be another factor. The Marcos are in orbit around the sun and will only get away as February wears on. The farther they are, the more precisely they need to point their antennas to communicate with Earth. The Marcos won't start moving toward the sun again until this summer. The team will reattempt to contact the CubeSats at that time, though it's anyone's guess whether their batteries and other parts will last that long. Even if they've never revived, the team considers Marco a spectacular success. Andy Klesch, the mission's chief engineer at JPL, said, "This mission was always about pushing the limits of miniaturized technology and seeing just how far it could take us. We've put a stake in the ground. Future CubeSats might go even farther." A number of the critical spare parts for each Marco will be used in other CubeSat missions. That includes their experimental radios, antennas, and propulsion systems. Several of these systems were provided by commercial vendors, making it easier for other CubeSats to use them as well. More small spacecraft are on the way. NASA is set to launch a variety of new CubeSats in coming years. John Baker, the Marco program manager at JPL, said, "There's a big potential in these small packages. CubeSats, part of a larger group of spacecraft called SmallSats, are a new platform for space exploration that is affordable to more than just government agencies." And in space NASA history for this past week, starting with February the 3rd, back in 1995, one of my astronaut heroes, Eileen Collins, became the first woman to pilot the space shuttle with the launch of Space Shuttle Discovery on mission STS-70. On February the 4th, 1906, Clyde Tombaugh was born. Dissatisfied with store-bought telescopes, Tombaugh used spare farming machinery parts to build his own equipment. His observation-based sketches of Mars and Jupiter impressed the staff at Lowell Observatory so much that they offered him a job where he would make the discovery of a lifetime. On February 18, 1930, after thousands of hours examining photographic plates of the night sky, the 24-year-old Tombaugh located the elusive planet X, now known as dwarf planet, well, planet still to me, Pluto. Although he is best remembered for finding Pluto, he also cataloged thousands of asteroids, variable stars, and galaxies. He died January the 17th, 1997. Some of Tombaugh's ashes are aboard the New Horizons spacecraft, which flew by Pluto on July 14th, 2015. And if you've never been to Lowell Observatory, I would highly recommend it. It is a wonderful place to go, and you can see a lot of the plates that Tombaugh took while he was looking for or found Pluto. Also on February the 4th, back in 1966, the Russian probe Luna 9 landed on the moon, a major feat in the history of the space race. And then the same day, February the 4th, 1967, Lunar Orbiter 3 was launched to the moon. The Lunar Orbiter program, run by NASA's Langley Research Center, launched 5 probes to provide detailed photographs of the lunar surface in preparation for the Apollo landings. All 5 Lunar Orbiter missions were successful. Lunar Orbiter 3 took new pictures of the 12 potential landing sites identified in Lunar Orbiter 1 and Lunar Orbiter 2 photographs. As a result of this, 4 potential landing sites were cut from the list. Despite the burnout of the film advanced motor on March the 4th, 1967, over 600 medium and high-resolution images of the moon were sent to Earth. February the 5th, 1971, the Apollo 14 lunar module Antares touched down on the moon. The crew, led by the first American in space, Alan Shepard, included Ed Mitchell as lunar module pilot and Stuart Roosa as command module pilot. They were tasked with exploring the Friar-Morrow region, the mission originally assigned to Apollo 13. Over the course of 2 moonwalks, lasting approximately 4 hours each, Shepard and Mitchell 94 pounds of rocks and soil to return to Earth. It was also on this mission, at the end of the second moonwalk, that Alan Shepard would enter into space legend as the first person to hit a golf ball in space. After attaching a 6-iron head to the handle of a lunar sample collection device, Shepard fired off several shots before returning to the Antares. On February the 6th, 1995, the shuttle Discovery approached the Russian space station Mir and completed a fly-around, thus marking the first shuttle rendezvous with Mir as a part of the Shuttle Mir program. The mission, STS-70, was the first of the year, and on board was Russian cosmonaut Vladimir Titov. He was the second cosmonaut to fly aboard a U.S. space shuttle as part of the U.S.-Russian agreement on spaceflight cooperation. After the closest point of approach, Discovery Commander James Weatherby said, "As we are bringing our spaceships closer together, we are bringing our nations closer together. The next time we approach, we will shake your hand, and together we will lead our world into the next millennium." February the 7th, 1984, astronaut Bruce McCandless performed the first non-tethered spacewalk. This happened during Space Shuttle mission STS-41B, and Bruce used the Manned Maneuvering Unit, or MMU, a sort of jet propulsion backpack. Bruce was not only the first person to use MMU, but was intimately involved in the design and development with Ed Whitsitt from NASA and Bill Bollendonk from Martin Marietta Corporation. McCandless, Whitsitt, and Bollendonk were awarded the Collier Trophy in 1984 for the development of the MMU. Bruce passed away late in December 2017 and was buried at his alma mater, the U.S. Naval Academy, on January 16, 2018. Also on February the 7th in 1999, NASA's Stardust mission launched. The primary goal of the mission was to collect samples from the comet Wild 2 and return them to Earth. The team had expected the samples to contain materials from the formation of the early solar system, preserved in ice for billions of years. Indeed, researchers found what they expected, but with a surprise. Comet Wild 2 had formed under extremely hot conditions. It turns out that comets are not only made up of the ice from the outer solar system, but also materials formed near the sun in an environment hot enough to evaporate bricks. On February the 8th, 1974, Skylab 4 crew returned from the third and final mission to the first U.S. space station. Skylab 4 was launched on November 16, 1973, with Command and Service Module CSM-118. The three-person crew, Gerald P. Carr, William R. Pogue, and Edward G. Gibson, spent 84 days on orbit. The mission included the observation of the comet Kohoutek, among numerous experiments. The crew completed 1,214 Earth orbits and 4 extravehicular activities totaling 22 hours and 13 minutes. CSM-118 was transferred from NASA to the Smithsonian in 1975. On February the 8th in 1992, the Ulysses probe arrived at Jupiter to perform a swing-by maneuver in order to establish an orbit non-coplanar with the Earth around the Sun. The Ulysses mission was designed to study the Sun from its poles, a vantage point not often accessed, for 5 years. Exceeding all expectations, the Ulysses collected invaluable data on the heliosphere for 20 years, allowing scientists to map previously inaccessible parts of the heliosphere. Though not its primary objective, the Jupiter flyby led to significant discoveries, especially about the magnetic field of the largest planet in our solar system. And finally, on February the 8th of 2013, the Curiosity rover drilled into a portion of Martian bedrock, collecting the first sample ever obtained from the interior of another planet. This particular rock, named John Klein in memory of a Mars Science Laboratory Deputy Project Manager, produced evidence that conditions on Mars were favorable for microbial life. And that's all I've got this evening. This is K5KTX. Back to you.
Very much, Kelly. All right, we are out of time. We're going to close it out. Do we have any last-minute check-ins?
Kilo
Echo 5, Juliet, Delta Whiskey, John and Coppell.
November 5, Hotel Yankee Papa, Tom in Irving.
Completely operational, and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow Movie Net.
Sorry, I was slow with the pencil. What was that first call sign again, please?
Oh, 05, Juliet, Delta Whiskey, John and Coppell.
Great. K5 JDW John and then N5 HYP Tom. So we have 22 hams participating tonight. Okay, we hope you join us here again next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all other DARC nets. If you'd like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion on this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. Until next Saturday night, this is WB50ZL, Brenda. I'll be closing the net at 22:30 local time, and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. So to everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. And we're going to take a 5-minute break and come back here for the Afterglow movie net. WB50OZL clear.
Everyone, had a question for the net, but I will enter it on the chat window next week. K5JW.
Does anyone need to use the repeater before we begin the Afterglow movie net? This is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray. Yeah, it's me again, Tom, and I'll be doing the Afterglow Movie Net NCS responsibilities. So, first thing we'll do is, while you think about whether you want to check in on this net, I'll tell you a little bit about the movie, and then you can check in. The most important part is that you do check in. This is a movie from 1966, Dimension 5, also known as Dimension 5, Dimension 4, I guess it was called Dimension 4. It was a 1966 science fiction espionage or spy-fi, oh I love it, spy-fi, not sci-fi, spy-fi film, written by Arthur C. Pierce and directed by Franklin, you don't need to know. Jeffrey Hunter and Francine Nguyen star as time-traveling secret agents. Who doesn't know about time-traveling secret agents? It was part of a series of 9 low-budget films produced by United Pictures Corporation. I didn't know that. Films were intended for TV distribution, but received a theatrical release. The time travel premise was previously been used in the studio's film Cyborg 2087. Right, this comes from Wiki, and it has a longer plot synopsis than good films, so I'm only going to read a few paragraphs and then be ready because you get a chance to check in. Justin Power, not to be confused with Austin Powers, played by Jeffrey Hunter, agent for Espionage Incorporated, returns from a mission in which he used a time travel belt to steal secret plans. He is told by his superior, Kane, he is to be teamed with a Chinese agent to combat the Asian crime ring Dragon, headed by crime lord Big Buddha. Yeah. A sister agency has discovered Dragon plans to destroy Los Angeles if the United States forces are not withdrawn from East Asia. Okay, aware that Dragon has a primitive hydrogen bomb, but in no way to deliver it, Espionage Inc. plans to interrogate a captured agent, Chang. Not that Chang from Star Trek, but Chang. Chang is being brought from Hong Kong by 2 agents, Sato, played by Robert Ito, who is now 253 years old and still alive, and George, so they might learn Dragon's plans. Chang insists that Dragon will see to it that he will never talk the assassination attempt occurs immediately, though George is killed. Chang survives, unfortunately, when a female agent shoots the assassin with a dart. Oh, I'm not reading beyond this. There's a thing at Ontario Airport. Things happen. There's lots of talking, and there's lots of narration. I just lost my pen. Please stand by. found a pen. Okay, that's enough. Yeah, you can decide whether this thing works or not. I thought it was kind of like a TV series when they talked about it originally. It had everything to do with all of that. Jeffrey Hunter had just come off of Star Trek, the pilot for The Cage, and it seemed like a good idea. I don't know. If you saw this, I'm sorry. If you didn't see it, good for you. So this is KE5ICX. We're going to talk about the movie Dimension 5. I will now take check-ins. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come now with your call sign, your name, where you're transmitting from. Let me know, did you see this film? Please come now.
Kilo Golf 5, Zombies Need Jobs, Frank and Flower Mound, and yes, I did see the movie.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo, Bill and Irving. Yes, I did see the movie. I kind of liked it.
November 5, Hotel Yankee Papa, Tom and Irving. Holly and I sort of will admit we saw the movie.
5P, Mike and Richardson, saw the movie.
B50ZL, Brenda and DeSoto. I did see it.
Kilo Charlie 5, Oscar Zulu Tango, Carolyn and Louisville, and I did see the movie.
T5 Echo Bravo Bravo, David in Dallas. I did see the movie.
My goodness, the enthusiasm for this film is quite amazing. KG5 Zombies Need... What? Frank, did I get that right? Zombies... brains. Oh, brains! I got it! KG5 ZNB Frank in Farmers Branch. Yep, you saw it. N5BB Bill in Irving. He saw it. N5HYP Tom in Irving and family. He saw it. KG5P Mike, you saw it. WB50ZL Brenda, yep. KC50ZT Carolyn in Louisville, my neighbor, yep. W5EBB David in Dallas, yep, he saw it too. Additional check-ins for what Dimension 5. Did you see this film or not? It's okay if you didn't. Actually, it might be a bonus if you didn't see it. Additional check-ins for tonight's Afterglow.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey, Jay near Weatherford did see the film.
Kilo Golf 5, Papa Mike, November, James Fort Worth. I saw the film Echo Link.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Papa Delta Sierra, I'm on Echo Link. Yes, I saw the film.
Okay, thank you. And Echo Lake, I acknowledge you. We got KG5PZWJ near Weatherford. Yep, he saw it. KG5PMM, Pop November. James, he's somewhere in Texas. And I got K5PDS. Miss Billy. I've got you checked in, and yes, you saw this fine film. Anyone, anywhere, any place who would like to join us this evening, please come now with your call sign name, where you're transmitting from.
BB, Bill and Irving, I lost track. Did you get me and Tom from Irving?
I do have you, N5BB, Bill and Irving, yep, and I got N5HYP, Tom and family over in Irving. Additional check-ins come now. That's fine. If you're listening, that's fine. If you have comments coming up, you can check in later. I'm going to go to the top of the list. What we normally do is we talk about various aspects of the movie. This fine film from 1966. So, I think that was a run-on sentence, but in any case, we will start at the top and we will talk about the plot. So think about the plot. Frank, my Canadian friend, has the first word on this about the script, the story, everything that has to do with this movie. He's taken amazing notes in Sanskrit. So, Frank, KG5ZNB, what did you think about the story? Please go ahead. The net is completely yours.
Oh, Roger that. Firstly, my call sign, you got it one letter off, so I shall repeat it phonetically. Klingon, Gorn, 5, zombies need jobs. Just putting it out there. It's Flower Mound, not Farmer's Ranch. I like this movie. I had a good laugh. There's two kinds of bad movies. Bad movies which are just a beating, and bad movies that are just funny. And if you're in the right mood, you just kind of giggle your way through it, and I laughed the whole movie. I really enjoyed watching it. Maybe on a different day I wouldn't like it, but today I thought it was very funny. Lesson number 7, there's something cooking in that kitchen besides chop suey. Full of good lines like that, and a lot of really bad chop suey humor, reminiscent of the 60s. Thought that was, that was bad, but it was funny, campy. It's a bad spy movie, and I guess it came out probably around the time James Bond came out, and it was a really bad attempt at making another James Bond, so I thought it was very funny. Just the whole beginning started me laughing. I mean, you had this little army Willys Jeep, keeping up with an old-time roadster. Like, there's just no way that a little Jeep like that could keep up with a car like that. So that had me going. And just that whole scene with the helicopter and going through that cave. I forget the name of that cave, but I know where it is. It's near the Hollywood sign, and a lot of movies were made in that cave, so it's just funny. They spent probably a huge chunk of their money for the film on just the helicopter airplane scenes at the beginning that added absolutely nothing to the movie, and so they blew a lot of dumb money there. The Boeing 707 from Pan Am caught my eye because it's such a cool plane, and I checked out the tail number on it just for the heck of it, and I found out it's still flying today. It flies with the Air Force, and it's a highly modified plane today. It's doing some very nebulous R&D for communications and sensors. So it's very cool. It's painted up all gray, and it's like a spy plane today in real life. So I thought that was cool, considering this is kind of a spy movie. I mean, where do you even start? Let me reset just in case. The hitmen in this movie were hilarious, and all the scenes with the hits, I mean, they were just all equally ridiculous, and the one with the mariachi cowboy hitman just really was great. I mean, that's what you want if you're a hitman, is to, look like a clown and stand out, so that was awesome. I liked the hair salon dryer. You don't see those anymore. You know, the ones where the ladies would put them over the rollers back in the old days. You don't see those anymore, I don't think. But that was a brain torture device. I thought that was very funny. And, you know, just the whole story. I mean, let's get to the plot, I guess. I'm not going to take too much more time, but, you know, just the whole plot's ridiculous with the time travel paradox thing, you know, that, okay, if you can go back in time and go back and forth, you know, you can solve all the problems and not really have a movie. And I like the nice handling of the boat the guy had. How he just ground that thing into the cave, coming in and going out. Just ridiculous. And you know, the guy in the chair, the big Buddha, you know, he just gets up and walks in his death scene, so why is he in a wheelchair? I don't know, it was just, I'm still laughing. I don't know, I found this movie to be funny, but I'm kind of stupid that way. Back to you, HE5ZNJ.
Oh, thank you, Frank. Frank, that was great, and I corrected your call. Kilo Golf 5, Zulu, November. Juliet, jobs. We need jobs. I don't know. Zombies need brains. You know, this is your fault, so that's why it ended up that way. And very cool. Yes, looking up tail numbers is something I do in movies, and you get an extra 10 points this evening. Thanks much. N5BB, Mr. Bill, what did you think about the plot? This is KE5ICX.
This is N5BB. Well, you must not have seen my 2 emails I sent earlier this evening, because I've got much more detail about tail numbers on airplanes. So look at the email I sent to you. I didn't send it to everybody. I sent to a number of people whose email addresses I know that are here. But you got it, Tom. But I agree. It got me looking also, just like I think it was Frank. At the start of the movie, there's a helicopter. Then there's a Boeing 707. And then there's another helicopter. And then later in the movie, there's another Boeing 707. And I'm thinking, you know, I better see what's going on here. So, the first Boeing 707, there's a tail number when he got off the airplane. There was a registration number. So I go and look it up. This airplane was involved in a very famous disaster where nobody died, but the darn wing half came off and blew up and everything. It was, the tail number is N761PA, and got to be careful. There is another airplane which now has that tail number, which is a totally different kind of airplane. It's not a 707. They reuse them. So the original airplane is no longer flying. It's been taken apart. There's another smaller airplane with that tail number. Anyway, the Boeing 707-321B aircraft deboards during the credits, which is 5 minutes into the film. That airplane, over a year before the movie was released, that airplane took off with 143 passengers for Honolulu from San Francisco Airport. Right after takeoff, one of the engines exploded, and the fuel tank caught on fire, and besides the wing being engulfed in flame, the whole end of the wing came off, and the pilot diverted to Travis Air Force Base, and he safely landed the plane with nobody injured. And on the email I sent, Tom, to you and several other people in the net, there's the TV report from the time that shows the airplane and the end of the wing, which is completely gone. Pieces of the airplane came off in San Francisco, different places. And then there was a family that was riding in the plane with a Super 8 or 8mm movie camera. They filmed the engine burning up and the wing coming off. They filmed it, and that's also in the video I sent. So it's amazing. That airplane should have crashed. Amazingly, they were able to fix the airplane up, and it was sold to, I believe, Singapore Airlines, and flew for a number of years, some other airline in the Far East. And eventually it was used for parts for RC-135s. So the funny thing about the whole story, there's something funny, is they diverted to Travis Air Force Base. They successfully landed this airplane that should have crashed. Then Pan Am sent another Boeing 707 over. That airplane landed no problem at Travis Air Force Base, but as it pulled up, the front wheel collapsed. So that airplane was unusable. So they had to sink a third airplane, and all but 8 of the 143 passengers got on it and flew to Honolulu. So that was the first Boeing 707. The next Boeing 77 was much later in the thing, about 15 minutes into the film. That's registration number N404PA, also Pan American. And that airplane is currently being used by MIT Lincoln Labs for research. You can see the link I sent. It's all fixed up nicely, beautiful airplane, and it's still going after them. So, both Boeing 707s and the airplane are very special. Got way too many notes though. So I kind of liked the movie. I think it was a typical science fiction movie from the mid-60s. There are all these electric doors that automatically slid horizontally. That was a really big deal. They mentioned Murphy's Law. They had a hand scanner to open up his secret safe. They mentioned the NIA. It wasn't the CIA. The name Espionage Incorporated was just plain old silly. They talked about gravitons and anti-gravitons. He originally talks to Miss Lovelace on the speakerphone thing, the TV video phone, which was exotic technology. They talk about Plan B into effect. They got a two-way radio. He's talking on his radio in the car with a microphone button. They use RFID identification. Remember, they had he identified Kitty Sue with this machine that he put over skin, and then it showed her picture and everything. And then there was another radio in one of the bad guys that was embedded so deeply they couldn't take it out surgically quickly. I mean, there were a lot of cool things in this movie, and to me, it was not too corny. It was corny, but it wasn't just totally silly. So to me, it was believable. Just another kind of James Bond-like movie. So I liked it. I talk too much. N5BB.
No, Bill, you said exactly what we needed to know, and I'm good with it. Let's see. N5HY... Oh, by the way, this is KE5ICX. N5HYP, Tom, over in Irving. Your thoughts on the plot on Dimension 55555.
K5ICX and the net. This is N5HYP. Talking about the plot. Oh, the plot. The plot. It just plodded along. The opening scene, was kind of corny. It felt a little Keystone Cop-ish. The credits, the opening credits. Oh my gosh, 5 minutes of airplanes. I know you airplane geeks loved it, but for crying out loud, that lasted forever. Though there were more credits at the beginning than there were at the end. I guess they figured that people wouldn't have stuck around for the credits at the end, so they put them all at the beginning. It was, yes. This movie got done as inexpensively as it did because of James Bond. I mean, I had friends with James Bond lunchboxes. That's how big it was. And and you meant from Uncle and even comedies like Get Smart and such like that back during the time frame. All played on the futuristic, super secret espionage and counterintelligence things that this movie troped on. The characters were kind of plastic. You know, the plot, like I said, kind of plodded along. This is N5H5P. Sorry, I sneezed there. It did progress, but it had a few twists to it, which made it good in a way. Because I mean, at the beginning especially, you were not sure who was on whose side. So that was actually done relatively well. But in other ways, it was kind of corny. It was kind of campy. It was a cheap knockoff on a James Bond film. But aside from that, it was good for a few laughs. This is N5H5P. Back to net.
Okay, thanks, Tom. This is KE5ICX. We're talking about the movie Dimension 5, not 4 or 6. Dimension 5 is starring Jeffrey Hunter. Next up is KG5P, Mike. I think I wrote this all wrong. KG5P, Mike, your comments on the plot.
KG5ICX, KG5P. Okay, thank you, Tom. Well, I think Tom covered most of it ahead of me. Yeah, it was a James Bond knockoff. Even had Odd Job in it. But yeah, this was made in the middle 60s. And of course, that was when all the spy movies seemed to be available. 007 started it, and then there was one of Dean Martin and Matt Helm, and then of course there were multiple ones on TV. So that was part of that genre. One thing that they could have left that whole business about the time travel out of it. That really didn't add a whole lot to it. But they were talking about U-2. He says, "Is that U-230 or U-235?" He says, "No, that's U-238." Well, U-238 is what they're after to make fissionable material. It's U-235, which is an unstable isotope. It puts out neutrons. So I never did quite get what the 238 was all about. Like it's supposed to be bigger or better or something. And they were talking about making a hydrogen bomb, and they were going to bring it in parts. Well, typically the triggers on those are plutonium. They're not uranium anyway, so it didn't make a whole lot of sense. I thought part of it must have been the Austin Powers movies must have been a takeoff on this. I always wondered where Austin Powers came from, and it had to come from this movie. But it was just a silly James Bond knockoff, you know. of which there were many made at the time, so I wasn't too disappointed with it. Back to net KG5P.
Thank you, Mike. Next up, are you ready? Are you ready for this? WB50ZL, Miss Brenda, you said you saw this movie in the affirmative. What did you think about the plot?
This is WB50ZL. Well, I think everybody's coming along with a lot of agreement here. It was corny, it was dopey, but it was fun. You know, it's a popcorn movie. Let's just sit back and enjoy it. And it had some really fun things, like a gun battle in the airport, and nobody noticed. You know, I flew back in those days. I don't remember anything like that. And all the little quaint touches in places like the phone books at the airport and the travel insurance, and it just, you know, kind of takes you back. I thought that was fun. The time travel part was totally unbelievable and kind of dumb. I love those three girls sitting in that room 24 hours a day. I'm not quite sure what they were doing other than just spying on people. But, yeah, it's just so 60s. It really is. You know, as far as plots go, I think it's okay. It had all the right pieces and parts, and it had a good ending, and a little predictable, but that's okay. All in all, it was a satisfying movie, I'd say. Okay, back to net, WB50ZL.
Thank you. This is KE5ICX. We're talking about Dimension 5, a movie from 1966 with Jeffrey Hunter. So, if you've never seen it, that's probably a good thing, but that's okay. KC5OZT, Miss Carolyn, your thoughts about the plot?
Overall, I liked the movie. It seemed to run a little long. I mean, you know, been shortened, more condensed, but it brought back memories, you know, Man from U.N.C.L.E. and James Bond and all those movies back in the 60s, and the Far Eastern, or you know, that touch to it, that sort of made it a little different. Just let me reset. You know, a lot of the spy movies, they were contending with German and Russian spies, so this Far Eastern touch to it, that added to it to me. And of course, the time travel, that was took a little understanding, but overall, I liked it, and I don't know what else to say. K5OZT.
Thank you, Miss Carolyn. Good comments. Let's see. W5EVB, David, you saw it. What'd you think about the plot?
Well, this movie's like a $2.99 bottle of wine. You don't really enjoy it, but it kind of gets the job done. Now, fortunately, about 5 minutes into the movie, I decided to tap the right side of my ring so that I fast-forwarded to the end of the movie. So I was spared most of it, but I remembered it somehow. I'm not sure how that whole time travel really works. But yeah, as others have said, this tries to be a James Bond movie real hard. But in the end, it just ends up being a Pink Panther movie without the funny bits. Let's see, what does it have? The parallels. You've got not universal exports, as in James Bond, but California importers. So a little inversion there. You've got Kitty Sue and Miss Lovelace, whereas James Bond has Dr. Goodhead. Let's see. The opening sequence, though, I thought was pretty good. I thought this movie was off to a good start. Gangbusters, you know, you got the big action scene, you got helicopters, you get the grand escape, and I was expecting, you know, a James Bond-like title sequence with the Fifth Dimension singing the title song, but alas, no, it didn't work out that way. And there are a couple of just, you know, plot silliness that, you know, once you make a severe plot error, you just say, okay, where's the popcorn? So let's see, the hostess from the Cantonese restaurant, who was also, I guess, consort of the main character, whatever his name is, Power. So he goes to see her right after the owl blows up, you know, and she makes him a drink, and he drinks it. Now, would that be a good idea for someone who just tried to blow you up? No, not really. And let's see, near the end, Kitty, you know, sticks Big Buddha in the neck, paralyzes him, and then there's a out of left field twisty plot element as she directs a lengthy diatribe towards Big Buddha, focused entirely on him. All the while, Big Buddha's goons are on the loose amongst the fireworks, and what do you know? They sneak up and grab her from behind. But yeah, I'm glad I had that ring with me. W5EBB.
Interesting. Thanks, David. Next up, over on Echolink at KG5BZW, Jay near Weatherford. You saw the movie. Tell us more on plot.
This is KG5BZW. Yeah, plot. A lot of it's been already covered. I mean, it's not really, you know, exactly deep, but and David covered a number of flaws. But I mean, it's a time travel flick anyway, which is a problem is inherent in the plot if you actually use time travel. But you know, it really felt more like some sort of cross between a choose your own adventure and a video game, which I don't know if choose your own adventure was around at that time, those books, but it really did make me think more in terms of there's a you know, fate. The game where the story-based game where he has a fated ending and all that, you just kind of choose the subplots, and that's what Justin Powers did, more or less. So that was kind of I mean, you know, if you want to play a game where you already kind of know the ending, that's kind of an interesting way to do it. Let me see. Yeah, there's some humorous elements. The acting, I know we haven't gotten to that. Acting was a little, I don't know. Yeah, I won't speak on that. Probably won't have anything to say on that either. I really like the first when we were first introduced to. I forget her name. That is whoever was working with Mr. Powers. I liked how, even though you had the cheesy fight scene, the way they introduced her without, with just a very brief amount of narrative, and then you saw that she's definitely a double agent because of how she interacted with both teams. I thought that was actually rather clever. And there were just little clever bits, like stuff that Bill mentioned, the hand scanners, the television phones, and that kind of stuff. Lots of future-looking technology was added to this, which made it kind of fun to look at, especially seeing that we have half of that kind of stuff, or most of that stuff. I don't know. There's besides the future travel, what did we not have? I don't know. So yeah, no, it was fun. It was not. It didn't. I maybe the plot was a little bit long. Maybe they could have cut a few minutes from the middle. It kind of ended badly. I didn't. The ending was just very anticlimactic. So that was a bit disappointing. And it didn't really seem to be going anywhere at that point anyway. So, I don't know. I guess they ended it as good as they could. But, and of course, I don't know. It just kind of got weirder as it went along. But, the ending does. But anyway, yeah, I think that's all I got to say for now. So, back to net. This is KG5BZW.
Thank you, Jay, and this is KE5ICX Net Control for tonight's After School Movie Net. We're talking about Dimension 5 from 1966. I'm going through the list. If you haven't seen it, or you have to refresh your memory if you did, do so. I will take additional check-ins in a few minutes. Let's see. Next up is KG5 Papa Mike November over on Echolink. James, you saw it and you've been waiting patiently. What do you think about this movie plot-wise? Go ahead.
This is Kilo Go 5, Papa Mike November, James. I'm in Fort Worth. I didn't think it was the worst movie of the bunch I've seen off this Afterglow Movie Net. At least it had a beginning, a middle, and an ending to it. And it seemed to kind of flow pretty well throughout the whole plot of the movie. I thought, I just wondered how much of those aircraft scenes were actually file footage that they then managed to incorporate fairly decently into the movie, along with that one freeway overview that they transferred into getting him down on the highway in that one highway scene. Also, I don't notice that anybody ever noticed, nobody's mentioned yet, but he landed on the high-rise building, and he walks through the hallways and doing whatever he did in the hallways. Then he comes out of appears to be a two-story building in the middle of an art show. KG5PM in, back to the net.
Thank you very much, James. Next up on the list is KFI-PDS, Miss Billy. What did you think about the plot for Dimension 5?
Good evening, Tom, everyone on the net. Yeah, I like this film. I think it was a solid B-plus effort. They got some notable actors. Obviously, they were trying to cash in on the James Bond vibe. They got Oddjob, to play in it, for crying out loud. So that was the real big deal. And Jeffrey Hunter as well. He's a solid actor of the time, and as well as like John Lormer and France Lynn, which we'll talk about in characters. But the plot I thought was pretty straightforward. You know, you've got American agents that are trying to thwart Chinese operatives. They're trying to get them to stop from building a weapon of mass destruction, which is pretty common in the late 60s, you know, height of the Cold War type films, espionage. But then they sprinkle in a little time travel to kind of, you know, sweeten the deal and make it, as you said, spy-fi or sci-spy genre. So it's kind of a cool crossover, you know, to have sci-fi and espionage together. I like that kind of a mix. I like that they didn't overdo the time travel in the plot. They used it sparingly, which I was afraid they were going to just trope it to death, but they didn't. They used it in places to kind of help move it along. And yeah, the plot did plod because I did feel like it was a long hour and 30 minutes. Normally, movies of that length tell a good story, and this one wasn't bad. It lagged in spots and made it feel long. So I was glad that, you know, it did move, but lagged in spots, so that, you know, is okay. I like that they used the time travel element sparingly. But I also like the fact that even though, you know, the movies of those types are usually very obvious, U.S. versus communist Russia, you know, trying to thwart the commies and all that, but this time it was Chinese operatives, so it didn't have like an overt communist feel to it like a lot of films in this time frame do, especially in the espionage film genre. They tend to do that to death, so I thought that was really kind of refreshing that they weren't going for an overtly, like, you know, capitalist versus communist war, you know, type feel. It never, to me, felt that way. And I thought it was just very interesting the way that they crafted the conflict. So I you know, tend to kind of come out on the liking side of this film. I'm with Brenda. It's a good one where you can just kick back with a tub of popcorn and just enjoy it for what it is, and not get too wrapped up in the seriousness of it all. It had campy moments. It had some schlocky moments, but it wasn't a total schlock fest. So I like that to me it was a good mix of campy and schlocky and seriousness all at the same time. So for me, I overall liked the plot. I liked the film. So I'll have more to say when we get to characters. So for now, I'll turn it back to you. This is KFI PDS. Back to Net.
This is KE5ICX. I'm net control for tonight's Afterglow Movie Net. We are talking about Dimension 5 from 1956 with Jeffrey Hunter and everybody else. Okay, I'll make my comments and then I'll take additional check-ins. This film, all right, Jeffrey Hunter was Captain Pike. This is the guy on Star Trek, and he created a wonderful character on that very quickly. And then watching him, and he was a good actor. He played Jesus in what was it? I can't remember the movie, but in any case, he did a good job. The point of the thing is this, that he had a wonderful career. He was going forward. He decided he was going to do these movies. And in the process, I was expecting a lot from him. I mean, you know, we're talking Jesus of Nazareth. And in the process of this film, I was expecting a lot more to happen. And it didn't in the plot. Does that make any sense? No. All right. In my estimation is that in the film, they were trying to do a whole secret agent thing, and that started out really good. I thought that part was really wonderful. And then it kind of digressed after that. The characters kept talking, and there were moments where they were doing things where they were talking more, and then we had to have the handlers going ahead and doing things and talking more about what we're going to do with the dragon gang and all of that. That continued to digress. And in the essence of the thing is that they want to do time travel. Well, time travel's fine, but if you're not going to do time travel in any way that makes any sense, time travel has this whole problem. Let me reset. The fact that you can see into the future, which means that you're seeing into the present, which means that then you can go back into the past, means that everything that happens can't possibly be done and be permanent, which means everything can be undone and is imprecise, not permanent. So my nose is bleeding right now because this whole time travel thing always happens. By throwing that into this story, which sounds like a cool idea, isn't in the end, because now you can undo any and everything. And they decide what they're going to undo and do in the whole process. As such, in the end, nothing cannot be undone, which means the story can be undone. All right, that's enough for me. I've got a nosebleed. Anybody else would like to check in this evening on the Afterglow Movie Net? We were talking about Dimension 5. If you would like to talk about time travel, I hope you don't, but if you do, please come now with your call sign. Thank goodness, because this one's a tough one. KG5, ZN, Juliet, zombies need jobs. Frank, your comments. Now think about this. I'll give you some time to think about it. Characterization. That's all you got. Go ahead.
This is KG5ZNJ. Character-wise, Jeffrey Hunter, he's, I haven't seen a lot of him. I mean, I saw him as Captain Pike and now this, and, he's actually, I think, a good actor, and he has the right look for it, but it's almost like as if he came 10 years too late, as the 60s went on and the 70s came along, he just didn't have that cool style, It's like as if he came too late, I guess, but it's surprising. He never really, at least as far as I know, he never really went anywhere, right? He just had some early success, and then I don't know what happened to him, which is kind of weird, but I think he's a good actor, and in this movie, of course, he didn't stand a chance. The script just didn't lend itself to anything good, and it was comical, but he did it. He just soldiered through it with his bad lines, and I thought he was good. I don't know. I thought it was entertaining. The rest of them were just a cast of characters, just entertaining for all the wrong reasons. What could you say? I didn't think too much of the other actors. I mean, Odd Job, what's his name? Harold Cicada, I think is his name. He was actually pretty funny with his spoken words, because usually he doesn't talk. And they had Genghis, it's Genghis, but they pronounce it Genghis, and I thought that was funny. It's kind of like Dr. Frankenstein, They were entertaining, I guess. Not much else to say about the characters. I mean, it was just that kind of a movie. I will say this. I remembered the cave. It's the Bronson Cave in Los Angeles, and that's the Bat Cave. If you remember the old Batman series on TV, that's the same cave as in the beginning of the movie. A lot of movies had scenes filmed there. A very famous spot. I only know this because I know somebody who went through it and told me about it. The other thing is this time travel idea. I have a theory on where they got it from, and probably some of you people who are on here are pretty sci-fi savvy. If you know an author by the name of John D. MacDonald, most people don't know him, but if you ask a lot of great authors that came after him, like people like Stephen King and others, they'll say that guy was like the greatest influence of all time, and they consider him a very, very amazing author. And he wrote a book a couple of years before this called The Girl, the Gold Watch, and Everything. It's actually a pretty good book, and it features not time travel, but time freezing with a watch that can freeze time for, I forget how long, maybe about 3 minutes or something like that. And it's a story about a guy who inherited from his dead uncle, who's a billionaire. And nobody knows how he got so rich, but then you figure out it was this watch that he invented. But they did make a movie about that. Anyways, my point is that I think they stole the idea for that from this book that came out. Now, a movie was made of it. Let me reset. I'll let the Morse code go by there. A movie was made of the Girl, the Gold Watch, and everything, and I think it was in around the late 70s. And I remember watching it on TV, and I really enjoyed it. And I just looked, and it is on YouTube. So, Tom, that's a possible future movie for the group. So I'll send you the link of it, I guess. But, yeah, I think that movie, it was a rip-off of that idea. And not much else on the characters. I don't have much else. This is KG5ZNJ. Back to you.
Thank you, Frank. What is the name of this movie again?
The name of the book, which is a fantastic book. The movie is a good, funny attempt. I saw it in 1979 or so I barely remember it, but I was awestruck by it, but I was young. The movie is called The Girl, the Gold Watch, and Everything. And it features Mindy from Mork and Mindy, and a few other familiar faces that I can't remember their names. That's what I remember, but it's a very cool movie. At least I loved it back in the day, so I think it's a good candidate. Back to you, KG5ZNJ.
All right, thank you, Frank. I've got it written down, The Gold Watch and Everything, and I have suspicion it's out there. And I will add it to the list, top of the list, because if it's that good or that interesting, it goes top of the list, because every movie that we watch somehow or another is deficient in some way, shape, or form. It's like what is it? The misbegotten toys, toys, but never mind. At any rate. Next up, N5BB, plot. Tell me about not plot, characterization. Well, he did plot. Bill, characterization. What did you think about the characters?
N5BB. Tom, go into the sink, take some cold water and splash it on your face. That'll straighten you out. Okay. Characterization. Well, I think the standout character in this was the character of Kitty Sue. The actress was France Nguyen. I don't know how she pronounced it. But she was a French-Vietnamese actress who's still alive. She's 79 years old, was born in France. But her mother was, her dad, was Vietnamese. And she tended to play Chinese characters in movies, even though she was Vietnamese and French. So she had a very, number one, in the movie, I thought she did a very good job. She played it straight. She was rather cunning. She was smart. She kicked the heck out of the bad guys. She saved Justin Power several times, and she did it with a very calm style. She was very self-assured. She didn't boast, but she knew who she was and that she could do it. She was a very powerful woman, and I thought she did a great job at that. She's an interesting actress. She was in South Pacific, the movie. She then was on Broadway with William Shatner. She was on Broadway with William Shatner in The World of Susie Wong in 1958. She and William Shatner were the leads. Then, a decade later or whatever, she had some Star Trek episodes. So she was all around the business back there. She was married to Robert Culp a couple of years after she appeared on I Spy. That's where she met Robert Culp, on I Spy. And she was on The Battle of the Planet of Apes, the Joy Luck Club, all kinds of things. So she has quite an interesting career. Then she changed and became a clinical psychologist, and she won awards for that. So she had a second career not related to the entertainment industry. So to me, she's a very interesting person, and I think she did a great job in the movie. Other characterization. I think that the character of Justin Power was okay. He was a little goofy. Again, Kitty Sue showed him to be not quite on top of everything. And it was just the old secret movie theme of the spy master and the control that can reach the spy master with their electronic systems, the remote. They had a remote way of radio, of sending messages and sending, security warnings. And they had their video phones. It was all, cool 1966, latest technology kind of ideas. But the characters, I thought were okay. The bad guys were character types. They were cut out character types, but they were in all the movies back then. All those spy movies, the bad guys were always that way. As far as characterization, I think that's it. As with a lot of these movies, all of the Eastern actresses, the characters, the women characters, and the men characters, for that matter, were very strong. All these movies seem to show the Chinese characters, both men and women, as pretty crafty, smart people. Anyway, that's what I got in 5BB.
All right, Bill, thank you for your comments. N5HYP, Tom and company. What did you think about this movie, character-wise? HYP. Tom, are you there? I'm putting an asterisk by your name. We'll come back to you later. At KT5P, Mike, go ahead. What do you think about characterization?
K5ICX, KG5P. Well, the only actress of note I would say I agree with Bill, would be France Nguyen. This movie was made in the 60s, and Nguyen is a very common Vietnamese name, except it's spelled with a G, so it's not really pronounceable to English-speaking people, except you don't pronounce the G. But so she took out the G and just spelled it N-U-Y-E-N. Nguyen is like Smith or something. I mean, about half the Vietnamese I know have or probably more than half, probably 80% Nguyen. The World of Susie Wong had another actress, Chinese actress named Nancy Kwan. So I don't think she was in that one. The World of Susie Wong had Nancy Kwan and William Holden in it. Nguyen was in a movie called Hong Kong. So I guess it's easy to confuse the two because the World of Susie Wong took place in Hong Kong. But that was with Rod Taylor, so I haven't been able to find anyone with Shatner in it. She was in another one called The Flower Drum Song with James Shigeta. A lot of movies where they need a Japanese type actor. And also in a Dean Martin, Matt Helm movie called The Wrecking Crew. There was another, I guess Chinese or something, I don't know, actress in this movie. Who played kind of the nemesis of let's see, I'm trying to find her name here. It's Linda Ho, who played Nancy Ho. Now, I thought it really strange. She was going to stab Jeffrey Hunter. She picked up a dagger, and Jeffrey Hunter was trying to make her talk, and he was going to do the break her arm deal, a la James Bond. So she picks up a knife, and she was going to, or a dagger, and she was going to stab Jeffrey Hunter. Before she could stab him, she was shot in the back. And first I thought it was like the James Bond deal where there was some girl that was shot, and he had his arm around her back and he was shot. She was shot in the back, and the bullet went right between his fingertips, between his fingers when he was trying to, get her to talk. But I didn't see any bullet hole. And then all of a sudden, France Nguyen shows up, but she didn't have a gun or anything. So I didn't quite figure that one out at all. Who shot Linda Ho, I guess, or Linda Ho played the character was Nancy Ho. I don't know why they changed her name on it, but I couldn't quite figure that out. Maybe I missed something somewhere. So that was all the comments I had. Back to that KG5P.
BB.
Wait a minute. N5BB. I think it was sound like N5HYP. One of you two can respond. Go ahead.
N5BB.
Oh, Bill, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So Tom and Mike, look at your email at the link I just sent you. Talks about actor William Shatner on The World of Susie Wong with Frances Nguyen and in 1958. This is the original 1958 Broadway. This is not a movie. This is on the stage version of that. It was the first Broadway version. It was before the movie. And they replaced her with Nancy Kwan in the movie. But she was in the original Broadway thing, 500 and something episodes, with William Shatner in 1958, long before Star Trek and 5EB.
KG5P.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Well, I just looked her up on IMDb, and I knew it was a Broadway play, but honestly, that was kind of before my time, so I don't know who was in it. But you know, I had seen the movie. It's not a bad movie, the one with William Mullen. So thanks for bringing that out. Back to you at KG5P.
Thanks, Mike. And I should remember this stuff as an aficionado of Broadway, but I'm losing my mind. Okay, next up, WB50ZL, Miss Brenda, your thoughts on characterization. I know you have major comments. Please go ahead.
WB50ZL, I don't know about major, mostly almost. Yeah, I agree with everybody else. There's not too much about this is controversial. I think there's a lot of consensus. People are kind of down on Jeffrey Hunter, but I thought he was okay. I looked him up. He was in a million things, but nothing much that I ever saw. So, you know, I don't know that he had real star power, but he certainly was had a lot of parts and starred in a lot of movies. So I think he was good for this role. Just kind of an everyman kind of look about him. I liked Odd Job. Harold Sakata. He just has he has a lot of a certain kind of charisma. You know, everybody else did a respectable job. They portrayed the kind of people that they were supposed to portray, and so no complaints there. Well, that's about all I have to say. Lots been said already, and I'm towards the end of the list, so I don't want to just be redundant. Back to that, WB50ZL.
Oh, negative. You are midway through the list. This is KE5ICX. Thank you, Brenda, for your comments. This is Theatrical Movie Net. We're talking about the movie Dimension 5. As soon as I get to the bottom of the list, I'll give you an opportunity to talk about this film if you've not checked in. Next station is KC5OZT. Miss Carolyn, your comments about characterization. What you think about the people in this film?
Well, you have to admit, a lot of them were true to life. You know, the secret agent. Well, several. They acted like that. And yeah, Miss Kitty, she was great in there. Her role, and the Oriental characters. It was almost stereotype, you know. There was one nobody's mentioned, but I noticed because Robert Ito, I've noticed him in several of the movies playing Oriental characters. If anybody doesn't remember him, he played the assistant on Quincy. If anybody remembers that show, been seeing him in several of these movies, and it was some of the, you might say, henchmen on the bad guy's side that it was just a stereotype, especially Big Boots. And on the good guy side, them were the one that played Kane, you know. Actually, he didn't seem as much of a boss as he could have, but overall, I think it was pretty well cast. Case 5017.
Thank you, Miss Carolyn. This is KE5ICX. Next up, N5EBB, David. Characterization. You always have something interesting to say about, well, the cast and how they responded. Go ahead.
Thanks, Tom. Harold Cicada, Big Buddha, of course, was Oddjob in Goldfinger in 1964. He actually was a silver medalist in for the United States in the 1948 Summer Olympics in London, which was an interesting bit of trivia I didn't know. But he left his sharp steel-rimmed hat, I guess, on the set of Goldfinger. And his character, they could have done something a lot more interesting, and it even sounded like his voice was overdubbed or something. But, yeah, oh well. But Big Buddha, isn't that a little redundant? Is there such a thing as a skinny Buddha? I mean, how much luck could you get from rubbing the belly of a skinny Buddha? Big Buddha, okay, where have I heard that? Big Butte, John Butte, Christopher Lloyd from not Dimension 5, but Dimension 8, right? Justin Power, you know, he just seems sort of like he was just there. You know, he was kind of flippant and, frankly, half-witted to be a spy. Not all that smart, it seems, so he didn't give off a Sean Connery or Roger Moore aura at all. But, hey, it is what it is. Now, one of Big Buddha's henchmen looked like Tor Johnson. And I had to check the credits. But no, it's not him. Tor Johnson ended his film career in, as we all know and love, the 1961 Beast of Yucca Flat. But the really interesting character that I think most people liked from this movie was, let me reset, Sue, played by France Nguyen. I believe that NGU, Vietnamese, is pronounced like a W. So I believe it's France Nguyen. The voice was reminiscent of a character I've heard before. It's like, okay, that voice is very signature, very, very nice voice, kind of almost, kind of baritone almost, but it's like, where have I heard that before? It was from the Star Trek episode, at least, Elysian Tears. She was the Dahlman of Elon, you know, where one of her tears would cause any man to fall immediately in love with her. And she was probably the most compelling character, I thought, in best delivery and best role. But that voice was just so resonant. It's like, I know that voice, and I had to look it up in the credits. It's like, oh, yep, that's who it was. Interesting parallels. W5EBB.
Interesting, David. There's some back channel stuff going on in your conversations. Interesting. KG5BZW, J, near Weatherford, but but not near enough to Weatherford. Your comments on the characterization. Go ahead.
KG5 VZW. I do like my unincorporated Parker County status. I'm going to take something back I said earlier. I said that some of the acting wasn't that good. I think part of that is just really this. I really do like the mixed cast. They had an awesome mixed cast. I mean, I don't know that you could select a better mixture of people. I really like oh shoot. There's a little bit of now I'm having a brain fart. I should have written this down. Let's just put it this way. I like the characters. I'm not quite sure about the direction for those characters. Of course, the script itself might be kind of corny in places, but really, I think what got me was not so much the acting, but the odd. There was just a lot of times when the flow just seemed to be interrupted in between characters. The dialogue in between characters. There just was a little bit of extra space, which kind of took me out of it. And that was the thing that I don't know what happened there, but it did take me out of it. And I think you add up enough of those spaces, you might have I don't know. I'd have to. Maybe it wouldn't be 5 minutes, but it'd be. There was just enough of it that it did bother me. So there is that. I think I'm in agreement with everybody that Francis, the Kitty character, Francis Winton, probably stole the show in terms of being the best performer. Although, I mean, there were a few actors I did like the butler character. He was a smart guy. Yeah, a lot smarter than Justin Powers. Oh my goodness, Justin Powers. I thought Jeffrey Hunter or Jefferson Hunter. Shoot. I mean, he did an okay job, but yeah, that character was not that smart. And of course, we've already mentioned, how Son of the Plowman's just kind of like, wow, we just need a fight here. Okay, let's just have her try to stab her. So I don't know. Well, whatever. That's more plot than characters. I think I've said my thing because it was that station that really got me. But yeah, I like the characters. Just it could have been put together a little bit better. KG5BGW.
Thank you, Jay. Next up, KG5 Papa Mike November. James, your comments on characterization.
Elvis has left the building.
This is KG5PMN. I thought the characters were pretty good. They seemed to have a fairly even flow throughout the movie. Justin Powers kind of reminded me of a Gomer Pyle type character, and where he was always goofing up and make some kind of little goof up and always have to have somebody come to his rescue, and which is what I thought Kitty Sue was always good at, was coming to his rescue at a crisis moment. I think when he was with that waitress from the restaurant, or the hostess, or whoever she was in the restaurant, when Kitty Sue came in, she actually darted him instead of shot him. or shot her. She had some type of blow dart that she blew in as she opened that door, which put that hostess down. As far as Harold Sakota goes, his voice I've read was dubbed over by Marvin Miller. I don't know why that he didn't actually speak in the movie, but that's the way I read it. KG5PMN, back to the net.
All right, thank you, James. Next up, I have to tell everybody it's midnight, and as such, the repeater has gone back to a limit of 2 minutes, so be ready for that. We are very fortunate earlier to be able to express things, so remember that if you have something to say, give it a thought and then come back and reset like I'm doing now. Next up, Cafe PDS, Miss Billy. What do you think of characterization?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Yeah, I agree with what everybody said. I like Jeffrey Hunter as an actor. He's a very strong male lead. It's just, in this case, the writing wasn't that great, but they did their jobs very well with what they had. But yeah, I agree, he is not the brightest spy, but he had some swagger, which wasn't totally overblown, so he came in as pretty cool and had some swagger, but yeah, he had to be saved on occasion. And I love France Wynn's character. She was a very strong female lead and was not overtly like the objectified female. She was portrayed kind of, equal on par with the Jeffrey Hunter's character, but she was a little better at the espionage and spy game than he was. So I thought that was very interesting. I thought they had good chemistry together. First it was a little, cold and standoffish, but as they got to know each other, obviously by the end of the film, they warmed up. But I liked the characters. And again, there was a bit of, some campiness there, which I thought was played off well. If you look on IMDb, Big Buddha's character, it says, was dubbed by a noted voice actor, Paul Frees, who did loads of voice work in the 50s and 60s and was voices on a lot of the children's things that I watched growing up in the late 60s and early 70s, especially like Santa Claus is Coming to Town. He did the Meisterburger voice, and he did tons of those voices on animated cartoons and specials. So Paul Frees was a very highly noted and very famous voice actor. So, yeah, I thought that kind of, that lent some schlockiness. Maybe Harold Sakata just didn't enunciate that well. Maybe he had too strong of an accent or something, and so they needed to get an actor to dub his voice, which it sounded stereotypical, but it wasn't offensive in any way. Sometimes they'll overdo the stereotype of the accent, and it'll come across as disingenuous, but to me it didn't feel that way, but you could definitely tell it was overdubbed. But I had read it was Paul Frees who did the overdubbing. And overall, I thought the other characters played well. I think somebody said earlier that, the bad guy was the typical bad guy of the times, so there were some stereotypes going on there, but I felt that, the characters were an interesting mix as well. And as someone had mentioned, let me reset. Someone had mentioned before they didn't know what had happened to Jeffrey Hunter. While I was reading up on Wikipedia, he died in 1969. He had filmed in November of 68 a film in Spain they were working on called Cry Chicago. There was a freak accident with an explosion. Instead of it exploding outward, it imploded inward, and he suffered a dislocated vertebra and a concussion. And months later, in end of May of 1969, he had an intracranial hemorrhage, and he fell down a short flight of stairs in his home, knocked over a planter, and got a skull fracture from hitting the banister, and they did brain surgery on him, but he died the next day, and he was only 42. So I think he was an actor of great promise, and I think would have gone on to do much better things, and I think he had total potential of becoming an A-list actor, because he did tons of work, so he wasn't like he wasn't working. He did loads of work in the 60s, but this, his life was just cut short by a freak accident, so I think that was really sad, because I think he could have gone on and done much, good character work and also good lead work as well. I think it's interesting they all had Frank Wynn, Jeffrey Hunter, and even John Lormer, who played the professor. He was in several Star Treks as well. I remember him as the scientist in the menagerie when they first land on Talos. That's the first scientist they encounter who tells them of Vina. So I thought that was a real interesting tie of all those characters that they worked outside on other projects that we all love. So I thought that was really interesting. So with that, I'll return it to you. This is KF5 PDS. Back to now.
And this is KE5ICX. Thank you, Miss Billy. Excellent comments. Does anyone have any additional comments before we close this thing down? Because I'm getting tired. Anybody have additional comments? Please come now. Special effects, anything, if you did not check in and you would like to, you can do so now.
KG5ZNJ with a comment.
KG5P with a comment.
KG5ZL with a comment.
KG5PMN with a comment.
And then I'm going to need additional check-ins. Go ahead. Frank, your comments.
KG5ZNJ, I'll keep it really, really short. I'm sure every single person on here noticed that they used some sound effects from Star Trek in it, or maybe this was before Star Trek, but there was a lot of sound effects used in the original series Star Trek, particularly in that room with the three girls that were not sure what they did. Just noting it, and I'm sure everybody noticed it, but everybody forgot about it. So, saying goodnight. KG5ZNJ out.
Thank you, Frank. Yeah, you're right. Exactly. It was crazy effects. Okay, I did not collect additional people on that one. Additional comments. Please come with your call sign. Go slow because I'm getting tired.
Call 5, quick comment.
W5FC.
WB5OZL comment.
KG5PMN comment.
All right, on the open round, I've got KG5P, Mike. I got WB5OZL, Brenda. I got KG5PMN, Papa, Mike, November, James. Anyone else? I'll put you on the list for final comments.
Did you want someone to start, Tom?
looking to see if there was anybody else, but I think we're done. Well, not done, but on the top of the list, KG5P. Mike, you're up. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll make a comment here. You sound like you're fading. So I'll make it quick here. Yeah, Bill earlier had mentioned about France Nguyen and being in a Broadway play with William Shatner. So I started following those through. There's an Internet Broadway database, and so I looked to see what William Shatner had done as well. And he was also in a 1961 Broadway play called A Shot in the Dark. Now, whether this is anything to do with the Peter Sellers version or not, I don't know. I didn't say anything about it, but he was in also in this Shot in the Dark play, 389 performances, 60, 61, 62. Also included Julie Harris and Walter Matthau and William Shatner and then some other people. The only other one was a standby, who's J.D. Cannon, who's been on TV a bunch of times. So that's all I had. I wasn't aware that Shatner did a whole lot of Broadway plays, but apparently did. Okay, back to net. You're getting tired, Tom, so I'll make it quick, or I'll close it down now. See you later. Bye. KG5P.
Thanks, Mike. And yeah, I am starting to fade, but yeah, William Shatner was in a ton of stuff, lots of Shakespearean stuff, and it is, some of it is obscure and on TV, or had been on TV. Next up, WB5OZL, Miss Brenda, your comments. Go ahead.
Well, it's interesting that Harold Takata's voice was dubbed over here. He talked about him being in the James Bond movie. That character is described in the movie as being mute. And the only time he speaks is to say something like or aha. But he did a lot of other movies, so I assume that he could speak. I just don't know. Maybe it was an appropriate voice to be a big bad guy. That's all I got. WB5OZL.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. KG5, Papa Mike, November, James, your comments.
This is KG5PM, and I was just going to make the comment. I got the Marvin Miller character for Harold dub over off of the 00 movie section review, KG5PM in.
Dokie, thank you, James. So let's see. Let me go ahead and do this. We have to close this down. It's after midnight. The next movie, if it hasn't been removed, I checked the link and it's not working. But if it doesn't work, we'll go to the next movie, which is, let's see. Our movie for next week is The Doomsday Flight from 1966. I don't know anything about this movie. We'll find out what happens. If that doesn't work, then Gattaca from 1997 will be our next film. So I'll send this out. This is KE5ICX. If you would like to be included either on Facebook or through email. If you want to do the email, just send an email to Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-Ray KE5ICX at yahoo.com. Say, I want to be a part of the Afterglow movie. I'll put you on the list. Let me reset. You have Facebook, you can do that that there. Go to Afterglow Movie. That's 2 words, Afterglow and Movie, and say you want to be a part of the list, and I will put you there, and we will give you the links to the movies and all that stuff. We all do. What I do is, and what we do is, movies that are publicly available, or links to movies that you have to pay for. Either way, it works or doesn't work. I think that's it from me. I'm really tired. This is KE5ICX 73, everybody. See you next week. Same bat time, same bat station. Bye-bye.